Well, hello and welcome back to another episode. I'm excited that you continue to tune in each week, and I think we've got a good one here today. Today, we are going to be talking about 10 shifts that I've made to make my life easier, and I invite you to do the same. So, as we talk through these things, I am going to be sharing examples of how I use these things in my life. But I want you to think, okay, what makes sense for me? Because the goal here is not that you do what I do. You aren't me. You've got your own things going on. The goal here is that you figure out for yourself, what do I want? And this is such a challenge that I see in so many of us because we have been so conditioned for such a long time to do what others told us to do, right? And to want things that others have told us to want. Here, I want to invite you to listen and think for yourself, okay, what makes sense for me? What do I want for myself? And again, I'll share some examples, but really want you to personalize. It was fun coming up with these things. These are things that I have adopted over the course of the last several years. And I know that people like me, anxious overthinkers, we love a good list. So here we go, 10 things that I've done to be making my life easier. Number 1, take 2 minutes to make it easier later. So in the realm of my life, the major place that this comes up is when I find myself typing something that I'm going to use again with someone else, somewhere else later, I make a phrase out of it. So for those of you who are on Epic, right, we call them dot phrases, but for everyone else, you might call them macros or I don't know, whatever the tech term is for it. But this comes up over and over, right? Because we sit down at the computer and we type all damn day long. I don't care what kind of physician you are probably spending an inordinate amount of time on the computer. And you type the same things over and over again. So when you find yourself doing that, let's make it easy, right? Create yourself some little phrases. Now, again, if you're on Epic, you can copy and paste it into a smart phrase real fast. I am not on Epic, but I do have a program that can create dot phrases across any computer called Text Expander. There's a lot of programs like that. It makes my life so easy because when I look something up and I say I'm typing a phone number for a referral, I'm like, oh, I'm going to refer someone to this again. Okay, I need to make a phrase, right? So I can just make it easier for myself, right? Make it easier. And it just takes 2 minutes to do that. The similar example there is it takes you a very short amount of time usually to finish the note right after you see the patient, whether you are rounded in the hospital, whether you are in clinic. Sit your butt down, finish the note right then and there when the patient is fresh in your mind, or even before they leave, right? If you're in clinic, that is part of the visit. Anyway, the point is, make it easier later, right? It's always going to be quicker in that example to finish your note here and now, even if you have imperfect information, even if you're going to go look something up later, you can always addend it. But make it easy now, close it now while the patient is in your thoughts. Number 2, simplify your life by deciding once. Now, I'm going to veer into the personal realm here, but this is just some examples for you. And a little silly, but we're going to go with it. I decided it was probably close to 10 years ago now, if I'm really thinking about it, that there are certain colors and shapes of clothes that I feel best in, right? Again, this is kind of a silly, frivolous example, but there are colors that I pick over and over and over again, and there are shapes that I know work for my body. You know, growing up, I might have wanted to dress like other people. I might have, picked different things, but I never felt comfortable, or it didn't look good, or it wasn't the right color for me. All of those things, right? I have learned that about myself. And now about 98% of my clothes are all in the same, like 3 to 4 colors: blues, greens, blacks, grays, a little bit of white. Every once in a while, there's a little bit of pink or something else just for fun, right? But most of my colors are the same over and over again. And similarly, the shapes of my clothes, I know that they work for me. And it's, again, not to say that I never venture off, but when I look in my closet now, everything in there fits for the most part. It fits in a way that I like. It's colors that I feel comfortable in, that I think look good on me. It makes it so easy. And everything pretty much happens to match everything else. That's the other thing that makes it really, really easy. I get into a little drama over navy plus black together, but um, we can get over that. We can decide for ourselves what's okay, what's not okay. So that's, again, a very simple, silly kind of example, but it's a way that I've simplified my life. And that takes some drama and some choice away. Another really simple thing is that I eat the same thing for lunch every day of the week. So I usually do a big batch of something on the weekend, and it's just portioned out. Usually it's like some kind of big kale salad that I can just make a whole big batch of and then pack it up for lunches. It's ready to go. I don't have to figure out in the morning, what am I going to pack for lunch? I don't have to have any drama of, oh gosh, there isn't anything in here. It's very simple. It's planned. It's food I like, and it's just easy, right? There's lots of ways that we can do that. So think about for yourself, what could you make easier there, right? What do you want to decide once and not have to have drama? So think about decisions that pop up over and over again that are draining you. Is there a way to decide on something once there? Number 3, decide on your own internal policies. Now, this one goes back, generally speaking, to the work arena. There might be policies in your clinic or your hospital about, the way that we do things around here. And you, as a freestanding individual human being, also get to decide on some of your internal policies. I decided a long time ago when I was an employed physician that I wasn't going to take double books. Now, there's an exception to that. If I double booked myself because I really knew I needed to see somebody, that was fine. But this came up at a particular time where we were being asked to double book ourselves every day. And we would get this I've talked about this before. We get this ridiculous piece of paper in the morning at our huddle of where in the day would we like to be double booked. Now, that was well-intentioned, right? So that I could decide whether I wanted to be double booked early in the day or late in the day. Sometimes we were asked to put it on there for the morning and the afternoon, with the assumption that we should just easily overbook ourselves all the time. Eventually, I just stopped writing anything down. It was making me mad every morning to be faced with this question of where would I like to magically invent more time than I had. So I decided for myself, you know what? I'm going to see what happens if I stop writing anything down. And you know what? I didn't get double booked. Nobody asked me about it. Now, I was lucky there that nobody asked about it. I don't know why they didn't ask. I don't know why they didn't pick up on the fact that I wasn't putting anything down, but no one did. And I just knew for myself, I was busy enough. I was doing enough. I was spending enough time with patients. And if there was an access issue, that wasn't my fault. So I had an internal policy that I didn't take double books. And again, I might have chosen to overbook myself. If something showed up on my schedule, yeah, I was going to deal with it. But I wasn't going to tolerate this policy where we automatically overbook ourselves. Just wasn't going to do it. So what for you is an internal policy that you want to think about? Late arrivals, no-shows, right? Especially if things aren't being consistently followed in your clinic, you may want to decide for yourself, yeah, if the clinic isn't going to enforce the late arrival policy, I'm going to, right? If they're not supposed to be checked in 15 minutes after their 20-minute appointment has supposedly started, I'm going to tell the desk, you know what? They did check in 15 minutes. That's against our policy. They're going to have to, decide to come back, right? Or they're going to have to wait until all of the other patients have been seen, right? You can create your own internal policy there. I give you permission. You have cosmic permission to do this. All right, number 4, Don't overload other people. My business mentor, Dr. Una, likes to say, don't give people constipation. And this comes up a lot. And again, we can kind of think of it in the patient realm, but it also comes up with our kids, right? Our minds are often full of lists of all the steps, all the algorithms, right? All the treatment principles, all of these things. And when people come to us as patients, when we are at home with our kids and we've got some tasks for them to do, we could very easily hand off 15 steps to someone else, right? Okay, well, you've got poorly controlled hypertension and poorly controlled diabetes, and you need to start an exercise plan. You need to, give up animal protein. You need to take this lisinopril. You need to start the simvastatin. You need to, also start on this medication, and you need to stop eating sugar. I've just handed a list of a whole boatload of big things to somebody. And it may not seem like a big thing to us. It may not seem like a big deal for someone to go to the pharmacy and pick up a prescription and start taking it, because we're familiar with those things. We're familiar with those medications, right? We know the ins and outs. But if I've just given somebody 4 lifestyle things and 3 new medicines, and I expect them to go and follow my instructions, that is too much for nearly all humans. Similarly, think if you went to your physician and they all of a sudden handed you 7 big new things to do, including several medications and including several, big shifts in your lifestyle. More likely than not, none of it is going to happen when we do that. So let's not overload other humans. Similarly at home, right? If you have kids or a spouse or a friend, right, and you're giving this long, detailed list of instructions, they're not going to do it, right? If I tell my kids 5 steps that they have to do right now, probably none of it's going to happen, right? But if I say, okay, it's time to brush your teeth, well, that's maybe a bad example because it still takes me 8 times of asking them to brush their teeth. But you hear what I'm saying. We need to do 1 step at a time, 1 to 2 simple things. It doesn't feel like it's fast enough for us. It doesn't feel like it's adequate enough for us. But we cannot hand off huge lists of tasks, new things, new responsibilities to other people. And if we adopt this principle, right, if we go into an encounter deciding that we are not going to overload the other humans, that also allows us to set some boundaries on what we are prepared to handle that day, right? If I know that I can't hand them the 7 to 8 things that I think that they need to do today, right here, right now, I'm not going to open all of those doors, right? I'm going to pick the most important things and I'm going to arrange for follow-up and, any additional resources and help that I need. Now, someone is out there listening, probably more than one someone, who says, yes, but I don't have any follow-ups for 6 months. Yes, but I don't have any resources. Yes, but this patient doesn't have, the insurance coverage that allows for that. I know that we as kind-hearted humans want to do everything for everyone, and we want to do it as fast as possible, and we want to be as inclusive as possible. I know that. I feel that. I hear you. And it's still also true that we will overload those humans. I wish all of those circumstances were better. I wish people had better insurance for their own sake. I wish we had more resources that weren't physician time, right? For nutrition guidance and, exercise, development and physical therapy and, social work resources. The reality is that we don't. And we're going to have to figure out, how can we help this patient with the limits that we have, with the capacity that we have, so that we're not constantly drowning. And we will still give them constipation if we try and solve all 18 problems here today. It's still going to happen. So don't give other people constipation. Don't overload other people. Number 5, allow for travel time. You could also say allow for transition time. When we are creating our schedules, again, whether at home or whether at work, we are often jam-packing things in, right? We are making things too busy, and we are forgetting that sometimes we actually will have to navigate through traffic. Sometimes we will mentally or emotionally need to pause in between meetings or appointments, right? We will need to have a little bit of time in between big things. And we need to build that in, right? Because again, that's the thing that nobody builds in for us, right? If you've been a long-time listener, you've heard me tell this before, where I was coaching in a group, and one of my physician clients said, that time that's in between the morning clinic and the afternoon clinic. And I was like, lunch? Right? Normal people call that lunch, right? And we don't call it lunch. We don't think of it as that, because for so many of us, it is simply the unassigned time in between the morning and the afternoon, right? And it may involve a quick bite, or, a gulp of coffee or something, maybe a trip to the bathroom. But, we're pretty conditioned to kind of work through it because there's so much work to do, right? We need to allow ourselves time and space in between things. If you want to keep feeling overwhelmed and overrun, of course you can ignore this one. But most of us don't want to feel that way anymore. So we need to allow in buffer time. If you were in nonstop Zoom meetings all day, or even in-person meetings all day, back to back to back to back, how are you going to feel? Probably pretty overwhelmed, probably pretty overtaxed, right? Even though you're just sitting there and participating in the thing. Well, that's all true of us, as humans all day in the work that we do, right? We can think of it as having little mini meetings. Again, whether you're in the hospital, the emergency room, the clinic, you're having mini meetings over and over and over again. You need time and space in between some of those meetings. Similarly, you need time and space to be able to get from one location to another location, right? And that's true in our brains too. So allow travel time, allow transition time. Yep, it's gonna make your schedule appear slower. But again, if the goal is to feel less overwhelmed, less frustrated, less resentful, we need to allow transition time. All right, number 6. Know when good enough is good enough. We are so used to wanting gold stars, wanting 5-star reviews, wanting 100% Press Ganey scores and HEDIS metrics, right? We are so conditioned to go get that A+. And it's no surprise, right? That's how we got here, right? We had to be at the top of our classes in order to, survive and move up the mountain and get into medical school, right? And get into a residency and maybe get the job that you wanted or a fellowship. We needed to be competitive, hardworking, driven. We needed to get good grades, good test scores, all of those things. And here we are functioning in, our real world day to day after graduation, right? Out there in the world as attending physicians. And many of us are still wanting gold stars, right? Wanting to do A+ work everywhere. And the volume of what we do every day is too much. We can't get A's in all of those things. Now, we tend to think that if I don't work this hard, if I don't try this hard, if I don't make my notes just so, if I don't answer every question, that people are going to be upset, disappointed. I'm going to be sloppy. People will think I'm lazy. None of that is true, and none of that is helpful. Your B- work, we talk about that a lot in coaching circles, of aiming for B- work. Your B- work is better than a lot of people's top efforts. And I'm not saying that to be judgmental or elitist. And, if you think that, that's okay. I'm going to handle that. But what I'm saying is that if you are writing these beautiful, long, elegant notes and you're supposed to see 15, 20, 30 patients a day, there is simply not enough time in the day to do that and to do all the other things that you need to do for your human self and your human body, let alone anybody else, right, that you care about in your life. There's a lot of things in your life that can be good enough, right? The dinner on the table can be good enough. The workout that's a little bit less long or less intense can be good enough, right? Your notes can be good enough. Your responses to portal messages can be good enough. There can be a lot of, that sounds important and that's going to need a visit, right? There can be a lot of very quick responses to multiple paragraphs that somebody has written to you. And you can communicate that we aren't going to have this extensive dialogue in the portal back and forth to answer your messages. If there's that much need for that much dialogue, it's worth a visit. And again, I hear you, but I'm booked out until 6. That is not your fault. It's not your fault if you have too many patients to manage on your panel. You need to survive, which means that sometimes you're going to have to do this B- work, and B- work is a short response to a long message with the response of, that sounds important, that's going to need a visit, right? We have to do B- work. Now, we are still going to provide excellent care for people. We are going to not be overloading people, right? We're not going to take on too many responsibilities, but to be okay and to know where good enough is good enough. Number 7, speak up if you care about something. Now, this could be the group is trying to decide where to go to dinner and you have an opinion, but because you want to be polite and not seem bossy, you don't speak up. And then you end up eating food that you don't like. Again, it's a silly example, but these things happen. And so often we don't speak up because we've been conditioned to be polite and agreeable. Let's let that go. If you care about something, speak up, voice your concerns, voice your preferences. It's okay to tell others what you want. Be willing to take up space. People can't read your mind. Now, this is a common thing that happens in romantic relationships, right? Where we think that our spouses, our partners, our boyfriend, girlfriend, we think that they can read our mind, that they should know what it is that we want because we're so in our heads. We imagine other people might be in our heads. It's not true. You need to tell people what you want or what you don't want. You need to tell people if something is bothering you and give them the opportunity to fix it. Now, we can't guarantee a result there. We can't guarantee that someone is going to listen to our wants, preferences, opinions. We can't guarantee that we're going to get what we want. But I promise you that when you participate in a conversation, when you can be clear and let other people know what you want and what you need, you are going to be showing up for yourself in a way that is empowering. And you're going to feel better when you are navigating some conflict. Because I'll tell you what happens otherwise. If you don't speak up and state your preferences, and then you don't get what you want, and you grumble and you're resentful and you're snippy and short and irritable with people, right? Then you have this tension and nobody knows what's going on. I lived that way for a long, long time. And I know that a lot of you do as well, right? Because we are, again, too conditioned to just defer to other people. If you want this life to be better, you need to speak up and participate. Boy, each of these, I feel like I could go on for a long time. I'm going to keep us moving here. We are headed to number 8. Trust yourself. This is a hard one for a lot of people that I talk to. And again, it comes down to this phenomenon that we've experienced of being so dependent on staying on the path, of not veering from the path, of following the course to, let's say, get into medical school, to get into the perfect residency, right? We needed the external validation of other people's, letter writing and their recommendations. We needed so much from other people that we have often tuned out our inner self, right? We have not been trusting ourself. And of course, there's lots of circumstances that have influenced this, but you have survived every challenge that has come before you. You have survived them. Now, have things always worked out? No. Have you had some failures? Yeah. But you have survived them. And it's really important that we recognize that and we cultivate some trust in ourselves that if this doesn't go as I want it to go, I'm going to handle it. I'm going to figure it out. I encountered a medical complication last week that I hadn't seen before, and it was one of the big scary ones that you hope never happens to you. And I'm really grateful that somebody more experienced was there and helped me navigate it. And it was interesting as we were debriefing afterwards, he shared with me, this is what I figured out to do in this situation, but I actually have never read it in a textbook. And it made me pause and think that I was really grateful to hear that because this person happens to be, quite frankly, an international expert in the work that we were doing. And if he has figured out an excellent and life-saving strategy to navigate the complication so that people can be safe and outcomes can be good, but he never read it in a textbook, that to me stood out as this is someone who trusts themselves to be able to navigate challenges, even when we don't always know the picture perfect evidence-based answer. And it was just a lovely thing. And again, this was a scary situation, and thankfully everybody is okay. But I was so grateful, not only for him being there to help us manage the complication, but also hearing that perspective of he has just learned over time how to handle this, even though he hadn't read it. That is a great trust in himself. And it was just a lovely example. And now I know that should I ever encounter that situation again, now I know what to do. There are many experiences that I could think of that are like that, right? Where we haven't known exactly, we haven't learned exactly how to navigate. I think of primary care people in particular, because that's my world, as being really, really good at cobbling together a plan when something weird is going on, because we can't know ahead of time what all the situations are. And again, it's just an argument to really trust yourself to be able to figure it out. Trust your experience, your expertise, your skills, your knowledge, your desire to help, your curiosity. Trust all of those things. And that might be in taking care of patients, but it might also be deciding on a new job. It might be, deciding on a partner. It could be all sorts of things in your life. Trust yourself to figure it out. Trust yourself to navigate it if it doesn't work out like you thought. Trust your future self to be able to make the right decision when they have learned something that you yourself right here don't know. Trust yourself. Number 9, write it down. Write it down. When we are carrying around 50 million things in our own heads, it's like having all these open tabs in the browser, and it is slowing everything down. You're so smart. You're so capable, but let's not slow ourselves down. I don't care if you're writing out a list. I don't care if you're doing kind of like a thought download, and you're just like letting all the blah out of your brain, or writing down the to-dos for tomorrow, or writing down the I should do this someday. I have a lot of lists in my notes app on my phone. I have, future podcast topics. I have, future things that I want to speak to other people about. I have easy meal ideas. I have all kinds of things there. And it just allows me to get it out of my brain. And sometimes I go back to that. I'm so grateful that I wrote it down. I don't always go back to it. Sometimes it's just a matter of getting it out of my head. Write it down. We don't have to rely on keeping all of those things in our brain. You will create more space in your brain to be present and with other people and showing up the way that you want to if you write it down and get it out of your brain. Number 10, you are the asset and you need to protect the asset. This is a huge shift that you can make that will make such a difference in your life. When you decide and lean into the idea that you are valuable, that your skills, knowledge, expertise, the things that make you human, the things that you are really good at and special skills, right? Your special sauce, all of that matters. And how you feel matters. And how you think about yourself matters. And how you decide whether or not to take in other people's opinions matter. And when you decide that you are the asset, when you become more and more clear on that, protect the asset. That means that you need to take vacation time. Vacation time is not for getting caught up on charts. That means that you need to figure out the boundaries around work time and home time and personal time, right? So that you get exercise and sleep and time with your friends and time with your kids, your partners, your dog, your family, right? You need to do the things to take care of your human body, your human needs, your human emotions, your human thoughts. All of that will make you ultimately more effective as a physician, but it's also just important for you as a human being. Constantly giving too much of yourself and not refilling your tank and not protecting the tank will not be sustainable in the long term. And I know that you know that, but I want you to really hear it here. And I want you to really lean into it. The more I lean into this, and I'm not perfect at this, I still struggle with it, right? I still sometimes think, gosh, who am I? Who am I to, ask this of someone else? Who am I to say no to this thing? But when I step back and I think, what do I want for myself? What am I trying to create in my life? What do I want my kids to see? What do I want, my clients to see and my patients to see? That helps me to realize that I'm an asset and to protect the asset. It helps me to take in the good comments and feedback that come from other people. It helps me to navigate the criticism as well, because I can acknowledge that this is something that adds to my experience, and I can choose how I want to show up in acknowledging mistakes and failures, right? I'm no longer cringing and hiding every time I get negative feedback. But it's because I believe in my intrinsic worthiness. And again, that's a practice, and it's not perfect, and it's not 100% of the time. But the more often we spend time in that space, the better. All right. I'm going to read through real quick the 10 shifts, and I've got one bonus for you, which is kind of a internal mantra that I think you'll find helpful. All right. So number 1, take 2 minutes now to make it easier later. Number 2, simplify by deciding once. Number 3, decide on your own internal policies. Number 4, don't overload other people or don't give other people constipation, if you want to think about it that way. Number 5, allow travel or transition time. Number 6, know when good enough is good enough. Number 7, speak up if you care, as in speak up if you have an opinion. Number 8, trust yourself. Number 9, write it down. Number 10, you are the asset. Protect the asset. All right, and here's your bonus, because why not? This is something that I find myself repeating to myself when I walk away from a conversation and I'm just kind of shaking my head like, ugh. What I tell myself is, I am not their mom. I am not their mom. And what I mean by that is, of course, sometimes we have these experiences where someone's making some interesting choices. Someone says no to, the treatment that you're offering them. Someone tells you, yep, nope, I'm going to keep doing what I want to do, despite the fact that you're pretty sure that that's causing them harm, right? They are not listening to you. They are not taking your advice. I tell myself, instead of getting mad about it, I tell myself, I'm not their mom, right? If they have back pain and they're coming to see me, and what they want is medications that magically take it away. And what I tell them is, well, here is, I don't know, here is an NSAID, but also here's a referral to PT. And, I recommend this, 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 this. And they say, nope, if I can't get, I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there. If I can't get oxycodone, I don't want any of it. Or if I can't get medical marijuana card, I don't want any of it. Okay, that's fine. I'm not their mom. I don't have to offer them the things that I'm not willing to offer them. But I also recognize that they are independent human beings, can make their own choices. So I'm not their mom. I can't force them to eat differently or to take care of themselves differently. I can't force them to take their medications. I'm not going to show up at their house and, make sure that they're taking their prescription for high blood pressure medicine every morning. I'm not going to do it. I'm not their mom. Now, I get to have my own feelings if they come back and their problem's not solved, but I'm not their mom. So I offer that to you, and you can change it to, I'm not their dad, right? I'm not their boss, right? Whatever makes sense for you there. I go with, I'm not your mom. All right. So that is 10 plus a bonus things that you can do to start having shifts in your life that make things easier. I hope that adds something to your day. I hope that adds something to your week and your month and your year. And thank you as always for listening. Until next week, take care.